A big monitor with a high refresh rate can be quite expensive. I mean, just look at the Asus ROG Swift PG278Q or the Acer Predator. They're almost $1,000 in Canadian rupees for a 27-inch monitor. I mean, for that price, you could get this 50-inch Sony 50-inch, way to go, Ryder, TV. It's 120 hertz. Also, it's a TV. So should you buy a gaming monitor for gaming, or will any high refresh rate display work? I mean, after all, there's not really much difference between 144 hertz and 120 hertz, right? Well, let's look at this from a PC gaming perspective. I guess it doesn't matter how high your refresh rate is if your hardware can't get above 30 FPS anyway. So PC gaming. For our gaming monitor, we'll be using the BenQ XL2420G. It's 24 inches, 1920 by 1080 resolution, 144 hertz refresh rate. It has a 1 millisecond gray-to-gray response time, and it's got G-Sync, something you will not find on a TV, at least not now. For our TV, we'll be using the Sony Bravia KDL 50W790B. It has a 50-inch screen, 1080p resolution, 120 hertz native refresh rate, and an unknown response time. It's the kind of thing that doesn't typically get rated on televisions, often because it's not that impressive. So let's look at the most obvious flaw when it comes to using a TV for gaming, the inputs. For true 120 hertz and above, you need to use dual-link DVI or DisplayPort or HDMI 2.0. HDMI 1.4 and below simply can't transmit that amount of data, so you're limited to 60 hertz of actual output from whatever is outputting to the TV. It doesn't matter how fancy your TV is, the vast majority of them will only accept a 60 hertz input, and then it's doing all kinds of trickery in order to achieve its 120 hertz, 240 hertz, or 480 hertz through motion interpolation and backlight strobing and all that kind of tomfoolery. So in layman's terms, your TV is going to take a 60 FPS input and create the missing frames in order to fill the gaps. So on a 120 hertz TV, that means it will take an approximation of 2 real frames and put in a fake or predicted frame between. That means the TV can insert anywhere between 1 to 4 fake frames in between your real ones, which will sometimes work really well. Especially in the case of predictably moving objects, but in other cases, like a demo that I actually saw in a TV store once with a bunch of birds flying across the screen, holy crap, it looks horrible because those wings are moving back and forth, much like the motion can be very unpredictable in a video game. So the feature is designed to give the illusion of less motion blur for television shows, but in actuality, in games, it can give you more visual artifacts than if you just didn't have it at all. Now with our BenQ gaming monitor, that accepts an input anywhere from 60 to 100 to 144 hertz with a true that number of frames. So your hardcore CSGO player, for example, you got a decent video card, that could mean the difference between shooting at a real character model and shooting at an illusion that didn't exist 8 to 16 milliseconds ago. Not to mention that we have to factor in input lag, something that we do actually get PC gaming monitor makers focused on. So while a lot of the time you won't necessarily find it on the website, the good news is that there are great sites like displaylag.com and Blurbusters that do real-world testing, not to mention TFT Central, and they ran tests on both of our displays that we have here today. The BenQ scores a very reasonable input lag of around 10 milliseconds. The Sony TV, 22 milliseconds, more than double, and that's already considered pretty darn good for a television. Some other brands, like LG and Samsung, have models with input lag as high as 44 milliseconds, or approximately equivalent to about 2.5 frames at 60 hertz. That makes a big difference. Now, if you have a big screen TV, don't feel bad. I mean, after all, there are many things that can do that a monitor can't. And we also use fast-paced action games as our benchmark here, since that's where you would benefit the most from a high refresh rate monitor, where like twitch response is the most important thing. For slower-paced games like Witcher 3, for example, more story-driven, you will still get an amazing experience, possibly even more immersive if you play on a much larger screen like a TV. And we'd like to hear from you guys. What do you prefer? Actually, what do you use, and what would you prefer? Do you use a gaming monitor? Do you use a TV? Or do you use something in between, perhaps a toadstool? We don't judge. We just want to know for future reference. and to come to your house. It's not judging. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this from NCIX.